Let me call the study session to order. Roll call, please.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Daigle has an excused absence.
Thank you. We're now ready for clarification of items on the consent calendar. We have a long consent calendar tonight, so I'm hopeful that we can get most of the questions answered here at this meeting before we get to the 7 o'clock meeting. Councilmember Gardner.
Yes. Number 16, item number 16, when we talk about a contract for sidewalk and curb and gutter replacement, I know we have had lost a number of trees because of root pruning, and this also has root pruning as part of the process. Do we have any sort of standards so that we can protect our trees? I know sometimes it's private residents that do it, but in this sort of situation, does our forester come out or anything?
Yes, thank you. We actually work hand in hand with our forester and our arborist from the Municipal Operations Division. They come out and look at each tree and review the root pruning. If replacements are needed, they'll also mark that and take care of the tree at the time.
Thank you. And on number 18, the inspector, a freelance, a contracted inspector, that seemed like a lot of money. Like more than a salary for a lot of our inspectors? I didn't go back and look at all of them. I was just curious.
In this particular case, that fee is higher than what you would have with an inspector and full benefits. This was a position that we eliminated when we had retirement a couple years ago, and we've been holding it, wondering should we fill it or not. We'll be working with the city administrator to figure out if we should replace this position or not, but currently we're just filling it with contract inspection.
And they're more expensive?
They are more expensive.
Right, okay. And then just one more question on number 20, which is the HDL, the sales and use tax analysis. I sent you an email, Dan, but it bounced back. Just, do we have anything, did we look to see if, obviously they do other things, but the work they did looking into sales tax revenue and everything, did we get some more money because of that?
Not significantly this time around, but we're hopeful. The amount of the contract does not reflect something that we expect to pay each year. It's in the event that they have a big finding, they're eligible for 15% for a number of quarters going back.
Okay,
so
thank you.
We just started a relationship.
Mr. Petros.
Mayor Curry. On item number 15, there was a question as to the proper licensing of the proposed firm, and I wondered if if staff had that ironed out and wished to comment on that.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Petros. We did get a bid protest from our third low bidder, Hamel Company, and we did review that. His claim was that our low bidder, Optima, was not licensed or properly licensed in this area. When looking into it, Optima does its own trades. They do their plumbing, electrical, and a couple others. And state license law requires them to do at least 2 trades if they're going to self-perform the work. And he is doing that along with subs for some other trades. So we are in the review, and it's good to go.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
No questions.
Councilman Hinn.
I have none.
Councilman Selich.
I just had one on 16. On the diagram showing the sidewalks and curb and gutter to be replaced, you're not replacing all of those, are you? They're just selected areas within the diagrams?
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Selich, portions of are typically replace small patches. They usually range from 4 feet. Sometimes they get up to 10, 12. In one case, I know on Lido Island, we're going to be doing larger areas because it's substantially long strips of curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Okay, but not all of the, not every curb and gutter and every sidewalk is going to be replaced in those areas?
No.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and I have none, so we'll move on to the next item, item number 2, which is the TCA plan removal of cash toll collection from the toll roads. We have with us a very distinguished guest, Mr. Neil Peterson, who's the CEO of the TCAs, a good friend of many years, who I think is going to make this presentation. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for being here, for having me here. So I'll try to make this quick and informal, and please, if you've got any questions at any point in time, just have at it. What we're really here to talk about today is a change that we're making effective January 1, where we're going to be phasing in, or phasing out, if you will, the cash collection at our toll booths. It's going to be all electronic starting in the middle of May. So we've got a soft rollout here for the next few months on making that change. And the reason for it is to provide nonstop travel for all of our customers, whether you pay by cash or through a transponder. So you're familiar, obviously, with what the toll roads have done over the last 25 years. We've now got 4 roads in the county, 73 that you're most familiar with, the 241, the 261, and the 133. It represents over $5 billion in assets that were built essentially without taxpayer money. And they serve an important function. Secondly, we've introduced the transponder. We were the first in California to do that. We're the largest toll roads in the state. And the fast track trademark is now used statewide. So if you're in San Francisco, which I'll be at with my son this weekend, I'll be able to use the transponder going on the bridges in San Francisco or anywhere else in Orange County or LA County that have the use of tolls, either on fast track, either on toll roads or express lanes or HOT lanes. There's 250,000 people a day that use our toll roads. It represents about 30% of the highway lanes in the county. If our customers were not using our toll roads, they would be on the 405, the 5, the 55, and the 91. So just imagine what that would be like. And the other important point I think that's kind of interesting is that 40% of our transponder holders live outside of Orange County, LA, Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego. And 80% of the people that use the 241 and the AM peak hour are from outside the county. So these really are much more than Orange County's roads. These are regional lifelines. Obviously, Orange County is a draw for jobs, and people are using it to get to and from work. The value proposition is it's a predictable trip, it saves time, and it's less stress. In my previous position to this, I was a consultant and did some work for SCAG on looking at a regional congestion pricing study, and we did quite a bit of polling, and the 2 words that the public reacted favorably to on this whole issue of pricing our transportation system were the words express and choice. So we're calling this your express choice. You have a choice, and it provides an express option. Over 80% of our customers use transponders, and you know the benefits of that. First of all, you get lower tolls by using a transponder than if you pay cash. Secondly, you can use it statewide, as I indicated earlier. In fact, you have to in order to drive on the 110 or the 10 in LA County or the 91 in Orange County, and soon to be Riverside County. And then finally, there's no monthly fee if you use it $25 worth a month. If you don't, it's a $2 monthly fee. But 16% of our customers pay cash today. But we've surveyed them and talked to them at length through focus groups and other ways, and they want a variety of ways to pay, but they also want the nonstop. They don't want to pay a toll and then have to sit and wait in line to go through the toll booth. So we're introducing today, starting January 1, what we call an express account. And with this, there'll be no stopping at the plazas anymore. There'll be no searching or fumbling for exact change. There'll be no fear of getting on the road and worrying about where and how do I pay or get off or what have you. You won't have to have a transponder. You won't have to prepay or preload your account as you do now with a transponder. And there'll be no monthly account fee. Essentially, we're going to operate it like on a transactional basis, as if you were buying a coffee from Starbucks. You use the road, we'll take a picture of your license plate, and then at the end of the day, we'll bill you on your credit card just as if you were getting a latte at Starbucks. So it'll be on a transaction basis. Excuse me. So in terms of the choices that a person will have in how to pay, you've got the transponder, which we've talked about using Fast Track, and the express accounts. We think most people will use this method that I just talked about, but you can prepay on that if you want, and you also can have us invoice if you want. And then we'll talk about the one-time toll in a minute. This is what the signs will look like going forward, where you can pay by Fast Track or the new express account. And this new express account, you can sign up now. All we need is your contact information, your license plate, and your credit card, and we'll take care of the rest. For those who are traveling in the area that let's say are out-of-town guests or are not used to going on the toll roads, don't have an express account or a transponder, we'll have what we call a one-time toll, where you'll see signs such as this. These are exaggerated a little bit for the purpose of being able to see it, but you'll have signs like this on the roads going forward, which will basically ask you to go to either our website or our mobile app and sign up within, pay the toll within 48 hours. We'll also encourage you to sign up so that you don't have to do this again, and then there's no issue. This has been introduced in the Bay Area on the Golden Gate Bridge about 2 months ago, and it's been quite successful. I just want to close by talking a little bit about where we've come. You know, just imagine if the state had no funds for transportation infrastructure, and then imagine if the state in that situation authorized regional entities to provide what the state couldn't provide, and then provided the necessary tools to do so. Well, that's in effect what happened here with the TCA 25 years ago. And if you think about that, there's a lot of good history there, because that's pretty much where the state is today. So this agency that you created here provides a model for how the state role going forward might be thought of to stimulate local action. And secondly, it provides a model for how the region involves local governments in the decision making. The TCA is a joint powers authority. Newport Beach sits on the board of the San Joaquin Toll Road, as do all the other local governments that are affected, and therefore ensures that its voice is being heard in regional decision making. It's also a model for value capture. All projects that are built near the catchment area of the roads pay a fee because their value is increased by being close to the toll road. It's a model for how we operate. We're a government entity, but we've operated from the beginning more like a business, thinking about our users as customers and trying to focus on what we need to do to attract customers. I use the analogy of the airlines. We have empty seats to sell on our roads, and so we need to think about this in terms of yield management. What are we doing to attract additional customers onto our road? Because it's a win-win. It not only improves our financial picture and our ability to pay off our debt, but it also, for every person we bring on one of our roads, that's a person that's not traveling on the 405, the 5, the 55, and the 91. It also serves as a model for technology adoption. I mentioned earlier the Fast Track, the mobile app, and now the all-electronic tolling, which we'll be introducing over the next few months. And it provides a model for innovative funding for financing. With the fact of the matter is that the federal government and the state government have not stepped up to the plate to provide the kind of funds necessary for transportation infrastructure in the country today. This pricing our product, effectively what we're doing, is one option. And then it's been a model for project delivery. Each one of our projects have been delivered on time and on budget, in large part because we had the ability to do design build as a delivery mechanism from the beginning. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, and particularly in light of the discussion that's going on about the 405 right now, we provide an opportunity to educate the public and inform the public about this option and these options, whether it's an HOT lane, an express lane, or a toll road going forward. The fact that there's an express choice and the fact that there is a value proposition here and it has some value, and letting people understand that and appreciate that as we move forward. So maybe I'll stop at that point and open it up for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Are there any questions? Mr. Hen?
Yeah, I've been a Fast Track customer for a long time.
Right.
But I stopped using my transponders a long time ago. You know, you've got LPR technology here. Why don't you just automatically transfer everybody on Fast Track over to Express account and get rid of the old school technology with the transponder that you don't even need anymore?
Well,
because I presume I'm going to have to now go in and change over from Fast Track to Express account, right?
No. Why wouldn't you keep what you got?
Well, except I pay the $2 fee for if I'm on Fast Track.
You'll make that up in 2 days on a reduced toll. The transponder has a reduced toll from the person that uses the Express account.
It does?
Oh, yeah. So the Express account is paying the same toll that a cash person is paying today.
Uh-huh.
And we encourage you to get a transponder. We reduce the toll.
But if I go through the sensing device and I don't have my transponder in the windshield, you pick me up on LPR technology, do I pay the transponder price because I'm a Fast Track customer?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
You don't want to lose your transponder. You don't want to lose your transponder account. And so there's
Okay.
two reasons why you would want to be a transponder holder. One is the one we just talked about, and the other is if you travel on the 91 or the 110 or the 10 or the 15 down in San Diego, they don't have this kind of technology. You have to have the transponder to be able to use those roads.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay, so I definitely want to still be a Fast Track client.
You do.
And if I don't want to use my transponder around here, I'm okay. I still get the cheap price.
Yeah, we don't advertise what you just went through, but yes, you're right. But you're getting to another point, which is
But you're still docking me for the monthly impressed account. You know, you still go through that routine. You know, you keep my account up at a $30 balance or some such thing, right?
right. We'd like you to do that.
Okay. I'm still not quite sure why you don't just simplify the whole thing.
Well,
But
I think
anyway.
I get the thrust of where you're going, and I think that's where we are going eventually. I mean, obviously, there's a cost to us in maintaining the accounts, clearly. I think where we're going eventually, though, is where you're headed is eventually, when you come onto our roads and leave our roads, there won't be any overhead gantries, there won't be anything. We will track you, and you will pay for it by this, and it'll be no transponder or anything. So we're in the process of working on a pilot program on this right now to move in that direction. But it's moving in the way.
If I let you track me.
I'm sorry?
If I let you track me.
Well, believe me, you're being tracked already. It's just not by us.
The kids have two phones, so they pay twice?
Well, look, just contact the NSA. You know, they'll be able to tell you where I am and
I hear you.
what I'm doing, who I'm calling.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
I'm glad we were able to educate Councilman Hinn this evening. I guess Neil, I would like to thank you for coming and presenting. I have the great privilege of serving as chairman of the board of the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency. And I see we have Lisa Tellis in the audience, another great staff member that's been with the agency almost since its creation. It is the entrepreneurial answer to a state that was totally unable to meet the demand for mobility, and it performs well and it functions well. It's the only quasi-public agency where payroll is less than 4% of the total gross revenue of the entity, and so truly it is a user-paid operation without taxpayer expense, and that's, I think we can all be very proud of that entrepreneurial method of addressing our roads. I would like to encourage you to keep spreading the word on all electronic tolling. I think it is the wave of the future, and once again, TCA is going to leave the parade. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Appreciate you coming down tonight. Are there any public comments on this matter? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative. Good luck with this new changeover. Next item is the economic development study for the use of the city-owned buildings at the end of the Newport Pier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Give us a brief moment to update the computer, and I think Kim Brandt's going to start this one off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Kim Brandt, Community Development Director, and with me is Simone Georges, our Chief Building Official. And for several months, we have been evaluating the potential use of the Newport Pier in terms of the building at the end of the pier. It has formerly been a restaurant, and pursuant to City Council direction, we went forward and contracted to have a market analysis done for the pier, and Simone is here to present the findings of that analysis and to get direction from you.
Good evening, everyone. The presentation this evening, again, is for the structure at the end of the pier. Some options to consider. We'd like to get further direction from the City Council. what to do with the building at the end of the pier. Do we remodel it? Do we replace it? Or do we remove it? About a year ago, staff...
I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Attorney, should I be here?
I believe that's more than 500 feet. We did an analysis. I think that's over 500 feet, but I need to verify that. If you're more comfortable recusing yourself, I believe you are over 500 feet, but I'd have to double check to confirm it. No, you are. We've confirmed it. You are over 500 feet away.
Chuck, thank you.
Good thinking. About a year ago, we did an assessment of the existing building and determined that it's going to cost about $400,000 to repair the building. This does not include any type of tenant improvement costs, depending on the user, and we've estimated that about $150,000. Some of the issues that we have with the existing building, we have dry rot, we have water leak, some mold, mildew. ADA access is a big issue for this building, some dilapidated siding, termite damage. So it definitely needs some help and some money to be spent on it to bring it up. The City Council asked us to do an economic assessment of this building, the economic viability of the structure. We reached out to economic development consultants, GRC Associates, to help us with that analysis. They did a survey of the piers on the California coast. In addition, they compared the uses of the piers and the type of revenue stream each pier generates and made recommendations for their highest and best use. You can see on the map, we did a survey of 43 piers along the California coast. It did not include all the piers in the San Francisco Bay Area. Of the 43 piers, we determined a bunch of different uses, everything from just a standard fishing and pedestrian pier to restaurants, large piers that handle a lot of entertainment and retail, like Santa Monica Pier or Redondo Beach. There's piers that had aquariums or a museum. Manhattan Beach has an aquarium at the end of their pier. And we found a pier that actually has rentable cottages at the end of the pier, too. You can see on a pie chart that we put together here, the predominant use of the piers we've surveyed are restaurants. About 38% are restaurant use. Another 31% of those 43 piers are used just for fishing and pedestrian access. 18% are used for just those large entertainment centers, as I said, Santa Monica or even Redondo Beach Pier. The vacancy on piers is very rare. We found out of the 43, only 4 piers had vacancies on them. Our Newport Beach Pier, Seal Beach Pier with regards to the Ruby's Diner closing, Malibu Pier, again, Ruby's Diner closed, but they have a new tenant that's going to be moving in, and Harford Pier, and their cafe closed, and that's up north. We took our 43 piers and we narrowed it down to the 13 piers that fit our demographics. These are the piers that we decided that they would be the best comparison to fit Newport Beach. And the 13 piers we've selected are up there on the screen, Newport and Balboa, Malibu, Manhattan Beach, Oceanside, and Imperial Beach piers. What we did is we took a look at those 13 piers and we drew a 1/4 mile radius from the base of the pier and tried to determine what is the average annual taxable sales of users that serve that pier or are around that pier within a 1/4 mile radius. What we determined is that restaurants are the biggest taxable sales per store of any type of use around the pier area. You can see there on the table there an average restaurant from the 13 piers we've selected. They generated on average of over $900,000 in taxable sales. Food stores, which is your small little food marts, generate about over $700,000 in taxable sales. And my understanding, too, is only 25% of that is actually taxable. And then you go down the list there with general merchandise and apparel. So you can see on this table from the 13 that we've surveyed, restaurants is the highest taxable sales. Continuing with that study, we did the 1/4 mile radius off our Newport Beach Pier and looked at restaurant uses. You can see there on the table, our Newport Beach Pier is third out of the 13, generating $1.2 million in taxable sales. Santa Monica is the top performer there with $3.4 million, and then Manhattan Beach, which is $1.3. Our Newport Pier is $1.2 million, and Huntington Beach is at $1.1 million. Again, this is the 13 piers we've selected. This is just the average on taxable sales within a quarter-mile radius of the pier, kind of showing the strength of what restaurants can generate. What we also did is we looked at the per capita taxable retail sales for Newport Beach and compared it to California and Orange County. You can see there, Newport Beach on the right-hand column, the number one is for our auto dealers, generate the most, with $5,800 per capita. Then the close second is the food service, drinking, and drinking establishments at $4,600 per capita. And if you can compare these numbers to Orange County and to California, you could see the strength of the buying power in Newport Beach with regards to food establishments. So what we've determined is that of all the uses that a pier can be used for, the recommendation is that it continue to be used as a restaurant. If it is to be used as a restaurant, it can generate taxable sales of between $1.2 to $1.6 million per year, or about $300 to $400 per square foot per year.
Excuse me, as we go on, are you going to talk at all about what the former restaurant generated in sales? Do we know that?
It's about over $900,000 in sales.
It did?
Yes.
Thank you.
With regard to rent generated and how much money the city can generate, we can generate at 7% gross or $2.25 per square foot, about $100,000 per year to the city. If the city council chose to remodel the existing structure, we would recommend that we go out to an RFP to find a qualified restaurant tenant. And the beginning of the presentation, we talked about the cost of remodeling the existing structure, including the cost of a tenant improvement. Definitely significant amount of money needs to be spent on the building, and our recommendation would be let the city contribute through a joint venture agreement with an actual operator, spend no more than 50% of the project cost or no higher than $300,000 on improving the building, the existing building, and performing the tenant improvements. Selection of a tenant will be based on clearly their qualifications, their creditworthiness, their request for city's contribution, and the theme and menu. With regards to financials, what does it look like for us if we were to contribute funds to a remodel project through a joint venture agreement? And what we did here is broke down our contribution of $300, $200, or $100,000 contribution to a project. Total revenue is about $1 million over the 10 years. And you have to remember the first year you don't generate the highest possible revenue. You kind of build up to it. That's why the 10 years is only at $1 million. And if you discount this, your net present value today, as you can see at the screen, for a $300,000 contribution is close to $750,000. And our return on investment is 256%. Our internal rate of return is 30% for a $300,000 contribution. And we think our numbers are conservative. And again, we have the $200,000 or the $100,000. So that was the remodel option. Now if we go to replacing the existing building, this is the second option. We estimate a cost for new construction is about $1.8 million. Definitely a few challenges to replacing the building. We have to deal with the Coastal Commission. Continuation of lost revenue from the building until the building's built. And if we just look at the financials there over a 10-year span, our net present value is in the negative, including our return on investment, or IRR, is negative also. And it doesn't start becoming positive until after about 15 years. One of the benefits is definitely we'll have a new building, and there's an opportunity to do some pier maintenance underneath the structure. Our last option, if we consider removing the existing building, we'd have the cost of demolition of about $50,000. Again, a challenge would be to get the Coastal Commission approval, which we think about 6 months to a year. Some benefits: you'll have a larger pier area for the fishermen and the public. You could augment the existing building with possible gourmet trucks, maybe room for special events, and further opportunity to maintain the pier. So again, our options, either remodel it, replace it, or remove the existing structure, the existing building. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Selich.
Oh, no questions, some opinions.
All right, well, this might be a good time for those.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of going with the remodel option. One major reason is it keeps us out of the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction, which you never know what other conditions they're going to put on us if we try and demolish the building or get into a rebuilding of a new building. Obviously, the financials look a lot better to do the remodel on it. And I know you mentioned that Seal Beach situation up there. I have it on pretty good authority that they've actually got 4 excellent proposals to use the old Ruby's building. So I think there is a market out there for a new user for the structure. So I think I'd be in favor of going with the remodel option.
Mr. Hill.
Well, number one, I think it's sad that we have to make decisions based upon the fear of the Coastal Commission. It's absolutely absurd in my point of view. Having said that, I guess there are different definitions of remodel. We used to see one wall left standing. Does that constitute a remodel in this case, and would that avoid the Coastal Commission activity?
No, the one wall would require the Coastal Commission. When we say remodel, it's much more of the interior improvements, maintenance.
2 walls?
4 walls.
Yes. Well, obviously, to avoid the Coastal Commission would be an important thing. But even in a remodel condition, if we're going to go out to bid and we want serious numbers, the bidders need to know what they're going to start with. And so somehow or another, we would have to define what we would do and what we would be responsible for in that process. And undoubtedly, during that remodel, we're going to find some items that are wrong with the pier that haven't been addressed because the building's been sitting there for so long. And somehow or another, that's going to have to be kind of ferreted out. And I don't know if we could go in there and, I mean, if demolition is $50,000, if we could, obviously tearing it down in total is cheaper than picking it apart. But if we could go in there and clean it out to the point where there was an understanding of what existed, utility-wise and plumbing-wise, I mean, all that stuff's probably going to have to be ripped out and done. If we could deal with that so that we had a clean shell to go out to bid with, that would be where I would be coming from.
Councilmember Gardner.
Take the contrarian position here. I think we have an opportunity to do something different. We've got one pier with a restaurant on it. Why not take it down and have an opportunity to maybe do something with the food trucks and create something really fun and different for that particular pier? It's a very different kind of pier historically, and even today, it's a very different tenor, different kinds of people we see there than on the Balboa Pier. So I think we should just take the cheap way out as far as the $50,000 and obliterate it. I think if we presented a program that showed to the Coastal Commission that we were going to still have opportunities for access and even expand them, that we could convince them that it was a worthwhile project.
Mayor Curry, I believe that and take very seriously my fiduciary responsibility up here on the council. However, not every one of the projects that we undertake is under the guise of a development project. We're not CNB Development Company. We are interested in the welfare of the community, and like Councilmember Gardner, I believe that this goes beyond an internal rate of return and a return on investment. I believe that truly the benefit to the public is to provide the greatest flexibility. And the greatest flexibility means that the end of the pier could be the home of food service. It could be the home of Shakespeare at Sea. It could be the home of a night entertainment under the stars. It could be many things that fulfill our arts and our cultural objective of this year. Could be a number of things. And I think the way that we get to the bottom of that is through removing it. I don't believe that it's a challenge. I think, in fact, that the Coastal Commission would very much like to see something like that because of the access opportunities and the benefits that it affords to low-cost entertainment or whatever they're beating us over the head about today. I would support removal of it and then programming it for the widest possible arrays to the greatest benefit of our community and the people of California.
Ian?
Well, I was going to say I support the remodel proposal, but now I'm not so sure. Those are persuasive comments going the other direction. If we do conclude we want to go the route of the remodel, I was going to suggest that we maintain, that we not get too prescriptive with what we're going to do to the building, that we retain a lot of flexibility, and to the extent that there's a winning bidder, that we propose to work with that bidder as we're doing the remodel to perhaps reconfigure it without changing walls, but reconfigure the space in a way that really maximizes the potential bidder's use of the property. So just hold that thought. But I need to think some more about the comments I just heard about retaining absolute flexibility. I guess I do worry a little bit. I know food trucks are the rage of the day here. We got all these gourmet food trucks and lots of varieties, but I wonder how long that's going to be the case and whether we'll be casting about for uses of the pier. Oh, I'm not sure. I need to think about it. Sorry to be evasive.
Mr. Selich, you want to go ahead?
Well, just to follow up on that, the idea of taking it down and all these other uses are terrific ideas. And if we had a different environment to work in, I guess I might be leaning in that direction. I don't know that I would, but I might be leaning in that direction. But if we do decide to tear it down, I'll tell you, we need to keep our eyes wide open that we're opening ourselves to another agency's interpretation of what visitor serving use of that pier is, and conditions and requirements that would potentially be put on it that go beyond the actual pier itself. Once you open that can up, and we got an item later in the agenda tonight that's the same thing, that we get into that game, and all of a sudden everything becomes possible, everything becomes open, and you don't know what requirements that we're going to have. So if we do go that way, we better do it with our eyes wide open, that we're going to potentially have a long, hard fight with it in one form or another.
Well, I would just echo Councilman Selich's concerns, because I think the Coastal Commission has every ability to be completely unreasonable on this matter. I would, however, note that unlike the Balboa Pier that has a Ruby's on the end of it, it has a lot more parking at Balboa. And it's in an area where there's a lot more other activities for people to come and eat and go do something else than in the Newport Pier, where parking is more of a challenge. And I don't know of many high-end restaurants where people like to go and park and walk through the wind for a quarter mile among the bait and the birds to get to dinner. So I think it's going to be a challenging situation. The place has been vacant for, a year and a half, 2 years, and nobody's been beating down my door saying they want to get into it and make it a restaurant. So perhaps there is a better use for it. But I would want us to spend the minimum amount of money if we do take it down, and make sure that what is going to go in there is going to be something that actually serves the community, as opposed to the views of the Coastal Commission. Councilmember, anybody else? Mr. Petros.
Mayor Curry, my wife and I were just up in San Francisco for a little vacation, and when we were there, we were out on one of the wharves and enjoyed a wonderful morning at a farmer's market that was out on the wharf. We then walked over past that wharf to another open wharf and looked at an interpretive display related to Alcatraz. We then walked over to another, and there was something else for us to enjoy. I believe that that is the type of use that we could have out at this pier, where it is ultimately flexible. I don't think that it has a burdensome affair with parking. And as for again, the jurisdiction within the Coastal Commission, admittedly, they would have something to say here, but I think that there would be less prescriptive with this type of open and flexible use, and we get the opportunity to be reactive and proactive with future uses on this, on the pier, to the benefit, again, of the people of Newport.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure. No?
I just throw a question. I do have a question. Since I'm outside the 500-foot radius, I haven't been there in a long time. Do we have a railing on that pier now? It never used to have a railing on it. Does the railing go all the way around the perimeter of it? And would we have, regardless of what we do, ADA issues with respect to that railing and the 4-inch rule and all that kind of stuff?
It's an existing railing. There won't be a requirement to upgrade that railing at this time.
But does it meet code as far as childproof and that type of thing? I don't think it does it?
I couldn't tell if the spacing is more than 4 inches, then it does not meet code. Things get out of date. It is an existing. Mr. Baden said the building code does not apply to the pier.
Right. Well, I would just add the fact that from what I've seen of the Coastal Commission, they could dictate exactly what we could and could not do on that pier from any point forward. So I would, whatever we do, I'd kind of like to keep them out of it. So.
We had something similar with a different agency when we were working on Big Canyon, and we had a very good plan that was going to deal with the selenium. And all of a sudden, one of the agencies started adding and demanding, and so we just stepped back. And we could always do that. I mean, if we went to the Coastal Commission and suddenly they said, oh, this, and made unreasonable demands, we could pull it back and go to Plan B. So I don't know that, again, I know it's a challenge, but I think if we go in and approach each item with, well, this agency may say this or this agency may say that, we end up being very stultified in what we do, and we really killed a lot of our creativity.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Henn?
First off, I want to be sure, demolishing the building, is that a Coastal Commission project?
Yes, it is.
The demolition?
Yes, that's correct.
We have to go to Coastal to get the demolition permit. Could they attach restrictions to the use of the pier following demolition, just as a matter of getting the demolition permit?
Thank you, Councilmember Hand. I think if we were to go forward to the Coastal Commission with a demolition permit, I would recommend that we include what our proposed use of the pier would be. So it would be a comprehensive package of demolishing the building and what the city intends to have happen on the pier, so that the Coastal Commission could see the full package. And then, yes, the answer was there probably would be conditions that would be attached to the ultimate CDP for the proposed use at the end of the pier.
Including conditions that might restrict the kind of programming that we could do on the pier, I suppose. I mean, what Councilmember Petros said, that's a very inviting, description of how piers can be used and so forth. What I don't know is, up in the San Francisco Bay Area, this might have been something that's been in the first place, they aren't subject to Coastal Commission jurisdiction, right? The San Francisco Bay is subject to it's got its own it's got its own Bay Area Conservation District. So it's before I would, I guess, in thinking about it, before I could be convinced to just demolish it, I'd like to have see if we can develop a better understanding of how involved coastal staff and the commission would be in terms of restricting programming use on the pier now that they've got a clean sheet opportunity to weigh in on it. I mean, I don't want to run scared of the Coastal Commission either, but I do, if it's possible that they could just completely frustrate the sort of romantic version of what we could do with the pier that's been described here, I'm not so sure I'm in favor of it. And the problem is, once we take that building down, we're cooked. Because I don't think getting a new building built is going to be a very easy proposition if we decide to change course at a later date. So do you have any sort of response to any of that rambling?
Well, my
Just a
recommendation.
minute, we couldn't remove it, though, without their permission. We couldn't, so, I mean, we'd still have the building, we could always go in and remodel it.
That is correct. We can remodel the building in its existing location and the existing square footage without requiring a coastal development permit. If the City Council is interested in looking at a demolition option with creating a flex space opportunity at the end of the pier, we could certainly go ahead and sit down with coastal staff and discuss the proposal, try to get some initial feedback from them as to what type of concerns that they might have with such a proposal, and we could certainly return to the City Council.
Or perhaps look to see if there's recent examples where a building was demolished and if there is any recent examples where coastal weighed in on programming use for an empty pier.
Exactly.
Maybe an interim use could be fire department training. Just thinking. All right, let me open it up to the public. Is there any public comment on this matter?
Mayor Curry and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I don't know if others had the same problem, but there was no written staff report in advance of this, so I had a little trouble digesting. I'm not really a financial person. The numbers we saw about revenue and returns we're expecting. The earlier slides were talking about the gross revenue, I took it, that was generated by a restaurant. And I'm not sure if the returns are based on the presumption that we're going to be getting lease revenue from this, or the assumption is the city is going to become a restaurant partner in this operation, in which case the $1 million a year is not all profit. And if we're relying on sales tax, I would remind you that the sales tax on $1 million, the city only gets 1% of that, which, if my math is correct, is like $10,000 a year. So we saw a lot of numbers. I don't know quite where they came from or what they meant or what the proposition is. I'm sure we would be leasing something to someone, I assume, but I'm not sure if we're proposing to become a partner in a restaurant operation or if we already are. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments and bring it back in. Have we adequately beaten this issue to death?
I think I don't think I quite have a sense of where the council wants to go on this. I know Mr. Mayor's been quiet besides the fire department, but I get the sense that Mr. Petros and Ms. Gardner would prefer to do a takedown. I know where Mr. Selich is and where Mr. Hill is. Probably not to do that, to do a remodel. So I'm at 2 and 2 right now. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I could go either way.
Well, at the risk of prolonging the consideration of this, but you know what, I don't mind that because we're looking at a very long-term decision here. A few more weeks to think about it won't hurt. I guess I'd like to understand a little better the answers to some of the questions that I posed about the demolishment opportunity and programming, and if we can get any guidance that we feel is reasonably reliable about programming restrictions, for an empty pier.
I think we could get that guidance if you did want to wait, with the caveat that, as Mr. Selich would say, it is just guidance. I don't know how reliable it is. We'll certainly push the coastal staff to say, is there anything else you might potentially apply to this? I know in working with them in the pier issue the most in the past, they're most concerned about access to disadvantaged communities to things like the ability to fish. So if we were not limiting of that, we're not limiting of hours any more than we limit today, I think that's what they'll be most interested in. But let us take a look at that with them and get back to you with that if that's okay with the majority.
And we should do that. But beyond that, if there are any recent examples of actual decision-making that we can look at on that would be good, too.
Can we have camping on the pier? They're interested in that,
Does staff have any other questions of council? You think you have a good direction? Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the Visit Newport and Newport Beach Tourism Business Improvement District.
So, Mr. Mayor and council members, we do have a brief presentation that Tara will provide that kind of frames this issue up for you, and I know you have a number of folks in the audience from the Newport Beach TBID and Visit Newport Beach who will want to speak. But we are, again, asking for some direction from the council about this. So I'll let Tara take it from here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have two proposals that we would like your direction on, and the proposals were brought forward by our colleagues at Visit Newport Beach. Just a quick explanation for the folks watching from home. Visit Newport Beach serves the city in two capacities. They serve as the administrator or the owners association for the Newport Beach Tourism Business Improvement District, and that district is comprised of 7 member hotels that have chosen to add an assessment to their billing, their invoicing of their clients. An extra 2% is added to their guest invoices at the end of their stays. That money generated is used to directly market these 7 member hotels for group sales, much like the BCS, the Bowl Championship Series teams and fans that will be here in January. Under a separate agreement, the city and Visit Newport Beach have a transient occupancy tax agreement under which Visit Newport Beach receives 18% of the TOT generated in Newport Beach to market our city as a visitor destination. We'll start first with the NB TBID, the Tourism Business Improvement District proposal. Currently, the TBID is under a 5-year term. It was formed in 2009. And it would expire in April of 2014. There are 7 member hotels, and there is a 2% assessment. What's been proposed is to renew the TBID for a new term, but make that term a 10-year term. They'd like to add an additional member. The Island Hotel has expressed an interest in joining the TBID. And they'd also like to increase the assessment 1% to make it 3% total. These are the TBID members today, the 7, and the additional member would be the Island Hotel if this proposal moves forward. Under the separate agreement we have, Newport Beach, Visit Newport Beach is asking to extend the term of the TOT agreement. Currently, that agreement is set to expire in June of 2016. Under the proposal, we would amend the agreement to have the term expire in 2024. And simply this is for planning purposes. They would like to have both agreements, moving forward on the same timeline. There would be no change to the percentage of TOT received by Visit Newport Beach. So there are 2 proposals to consider, and we are seeking your direction on the term for the TBID, of course the additional member to make it 8 hotels, and the increase in the assessment. And for the TOT agreement, we're seeking council's direction on whether to extend the term to 2024. That concludes my presentation. Gary Sherwin from Visit Newport Beach is here as well to help answer questions.
I think there was one part, though, also they want us to declare the one ends in January, and they would like us to end it now. And one of the things I'd like to know is what the difference of 3 months or something or 2 months makes and why that's important.
Okay. That is true. On this evening's agenda would be the first step in modifying the existing term of the TBID, and that is you cannot renew a TBID until it has expired. Because there's a member that wants to join the Island Hotel, and there would be additional revenues received for the TBID to use for marketing, the member hotels have expressed to Visit Newport Beach they'd like to move that timeline up and get this process started earlier. So therefore, we would need to expire that TBID 3 months early and start the renewal process immediately. So they could, technically, if all goes well, they could begin collecting assessments in February, 2 months early over the current schedule.
Tara, the city of Newport Beach has elected to share in the revenues off the TOT with Visit Newport, 18%. Do other major cities in the county of Orange do the same? For example, does Anaheim share with the Visitors Bureau in Anaheim, or Huntington do the same thing? Or do those cities collect the TOT and they manage 100% of it?
Well, I know Anaheim funds the Tourism Bureau. I'll have to defer to Dave to see if he knows how many tourism bureaus are funded through TOT in Orange County. Gary might know.
I can weigh in a little bit on that, Councilman Petros. It is different in every city. In the case of Anaheim, they were funded for many years. They were established in 1961, the Anaheim Visitor and Convention Bureau, and they relied solely on TOT funding. for most of those years. Recently, they created a TBID, and they joined forces with Garden Grove to create this TBID with the understanding that the TBID money would go to marketing, but that the money that was previously allocated to the Convention Visitors Bureau would be allocated to visitor infrastructure, specifically the expansion of the Anaheim Convention Center. And there was a contractual relationship where those funds would be spent in a manner where the expansion would take place on a firm schedule. Otherwise, it would be then returned to the Convention Visitors Bureau. And it's a similar arrangement up in San Francisco as well. So it is visitor serving, and it is important that the center, from the Anaheim perspective, get expanded. That was the only way they could expand their center and expand their marketing.
Let me interrupt you right there, Gary. My question is a little more simple than that, simpler than that. We share 18% of the TOT with Visit Newport. And do other communities share up to 18% of their TOT with their Visitors Bureau?
The national average among all DMOs across the country is 21%. Some of them are lower, some of them are higher, but the national average is 21%.
That's the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sherwood?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Oh, you
I have
have
a
a presentation?
presentation.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, I am Gary Sherwin. I'm the President and CEO of Newport Beach and Company and Visit Newport Beach. I'm delighted to be here with you this evening, give you a little bit of an update on our TBID, and also to let you know that I will happily not be weighing in on the fire rings issue. So I'm sure you'll be relieved to hear that. So we're going to talk about a non-carcinogen item, which is our TBID. I am joined today with a number of our hospitality members and members of our executive committee. Debbie Snavely, the general manager of the Newport Beach Marriott, who is the chairman of our board. Andy Theodoro from the Newport Dunes, who's vice chair of our board. Denny O'Neill, who is your appointee on our executive committee. Candace Biscotti, who is also on our executive committee. Tom Johnson, our past chair. Daniel Cooper-Smith, the general manager of the Hyatt. John Lambeth is our legal counsel, and I saw Homer Bluedale sneak in as well. He is also on our executive committee, as you know, our former city manager. Let me give you a very quick update on why this was created. This was created in 2009 in the midst of the recession. It was determined by our hotels during a strategic planning exercise that we needed to be more competitive as a destination in terms of the resources devoted especially to group sales. And while we have a wonderful partnership at 18%, we knew that that percentage was not going to grow, and it was going to be the responsibility of the industry to come up with an alternative funding source to help grow that overall marketing budget. So this was an experiment. It was a 5-year experiment to see if we could generate the funds and put that into a group marketing effort. We started with 6 hotels. The Dunes decided to join us in 2011. The TBID is an assessment district. It is not a tax. More than 70 cities now in the state have created these. John Lambeth, our legal counsel, actually created the enabling legislation, actually has formed most of these TBIDs. He's a wonderful resource on that. They're all around us now here in Southern California, and now is a very viable way for tourism marketing promotions to supplement the partnerships with the city. Again, this is a opportunity for the city to actually enjoy all the upside with none of the downside. The city does not put any general fund revenues into this. And in fact, it is compensated at 0.25% for collecting them, collecting the funds, and then returning them to us for our marketing efforts. And unlike many of the other bids, the city doesn't have to spend any staff time managing, operating, overseeing the bids other than what is legally required, because we do have a very engaged board and a infrastructure set up to properly spend those funds. Since it was created in May of 2009, the TBID, as I said, was that 5-year experiment, and it has been a wonderful experiment that has showed tremendous return on investment. The TBID contributions since that point, and this is about as of a month ago, total a little over $6.5 million. The hotels, through our group solicitation effort, and this is information provided to us by the hotels, the revenue is over $22.5 million that have come from the groups that we have booked into it. The ROI on that is obviously pretty substantial, of over 353%. And then in addition to that, there is a TOT and retail tax benefit that the city enjoys as well out of this at $6.1 million. We have booked 422 groups into Newport Beach because of the TBID, over 100,000 room nights that we are now enjoying that we would not be seeing in Newport Beach without the TBID, including the Bowl Championship Series, as Tara mentioned earlier. This is the largest citywide group in the history of Newport Beach. It will fill up every single hotel. Fashion Island is involved in this. It is truly a wonderful event that's going to be coming at a time of year when everyone can really use the business, because it'll be in early January. But without the resources, we would not have been able to capture this very significant event. We had to compete against Los Angeles to get this. And I have to add, too, that the 422 groups, while it's great that we're here in Newport Beach, we have a phenomenal city, we have to work very hard to get every single piece of business into this city. We don't, just because we're Newport Beach, people don't necessarily just beat a path to our door. The fact that we are Newport Beach makes our selling proposition much stronger, but it is no means assured. We have some significant competition out there that is going after the very same business we are. Here is sort of our booking patterns to show you how the TBID has helped us grow our overall bookings from where our goals were to where we've been able to grow. The actual booking of the BCS occurred in 2011, 2012. We didn't know if we were going to be able to hit those numbers again because BCS was such a significant booking, but we were able to actually exceed it a little bit last year. We were thrilled with that, and our team is on track to actually exceed last year's numbers as well. As Tara mentioned, the current TBID does expire in 2014. We are requesting a 1% increase in the TBID and a 10-year agreement. The Island Hotel has asked to join the TBID because of its track record and its success. And the purpose of the TBID will stay the same, which is to increase group room nights here into Newport Beach. Why 10 years? Let me explain a couple of reasons. Most of all is there is a trend now to have longer TBID agreements. San Francisco recently approved a 15-year agreement. Anaheim is at 30. San Diego is at 40. And the rationale is the same, that many of the markets that we need to work require longer periods of cultivation. The Island Hotel has specifically mentioned they want more of a presence in New York. We're happy to consider that, but that's a long-term investment. And also international. Believe it or not, we thought that the international guests would be coming primarily for leisure purposes. We're now finding that we're seeing some groups that are coming over here for meeting purposes. So the thought that someone in China would get on a plane for 13 hours and meet in Newport Beach is not far-fetched. And in fact, a group will be coming. It'll actually be headquartered in Anaheim, but we're going to see some room nights out of it. It'll be the largest outbound group meeting in the history of China, which will be coming next May. So again, to make those kind of investments, particularly in China, and now we're looking at the Middle East, requires a long-term outlook. The other point is that if the TBID ceases to be productive any time during that period, you don't have to worry about it, because the people who are going to see that this TBID is removed or eliminated if it's not working are my friends in the hotel industry, because they're not going to continue to support it if it isn't working. And all it takes is a 51% vote to dismantle the TBID and put it to rest. 3%. Why are we also looking at an additional increase? We are still looking at a competitive landscape with the growth of TBIDs. We're now looking at increased budgets at destinations all across the state. Anaheim, San Diego, Los Angeles, yes, they're big cities. Yes, they have convention centers, but they also have a lot of hotels that compete very much against us. And we have to be able to continue to have some sort of competitive strategy. Third-party meeting planners, these are people who are contracting with corporate entities to plan their meetings. They require a lot of care and feeding. They're a very important source of business. And they also use organizations like us. We call them DMOs, Destination Marketing Organizations. You've also known them as CVBs, but that requires time and investment, and the hotels are asking more of us. At the conclusion of my comments, I'm going to have a couple of the hotels speak to you about this, but they do need more from us. People buy the location first, meaning Newport Beach first, before they buy the hotel first. So our efforts have to be really ramped up in order to accommodate that, and the expectation for the hotels are only increasing. The hotels also require more customized sales strategies. The requirement of the Radisson and the requirement of the Island are two very different sales strategies. There are some areas of overlap, but they also demand a very customized approach. We're going to have to do more in bringing more sales missions, providing more sales missions and increasing our client events. And again, as I mentioned, that in order to expand on some of our initiatives, particularly overseas and in New York, there are costs associated with that, so we do need to do that. Finally, before I end my portion of the comments and bring my hotel colleagues up, I just want to mention one other thing too, and that is every year I come to you and I say to you, thank you for taking such good care of this city and providing us such a superlative product to go out there and market. It does help to have such a great product to go out there and talk about. And I know one of the things that this city has talked about to raise ourselves up to an even higher level, I know Mayor Curry has talked about it, Councilman Henn has talked about it, it's actually come up in your earlier discussion about the PIER, is about arts and culture here in Newport Beach. And we know that that's an important item. At the outset of the discussion, this idea of how could the hospitality industry be a contributing supportive player in this initiative was a focal point of our discussion of whether or not we should go and increase the assessment. And one of the things that the hotels uniformly agreed to, that we would like to be able to offer some sort of substantial contribution to advancing the initiative of arts and culture. They are proposing a matching grant of up to $150,000 that would extend over the 10-year lifespan of the TBID. We'd like to have it matched by the city. I know that right now you're in the midst of trying to put together a cultural master plan. We would like to see perhaps a cultural tourism component to be a part of that plan, because cultural tourism is now very common in many cities. We'd like to be able to contribute and be a part of that, and be obviously some of the good citizens here in the community, because we do think this is the next evolution and the next best thing that the city could be focusing some of its attention on. So with that, I would like to actually bring up Debbie Snavely, who is the chairman of our board and also the general manager of the Newport Beach Marriott Hotel and Spa.
Gary, a quick question before you sit down. The 150, you're talking about 150 a year?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Gary, I've got a few questions for you.
Okay. You want to do it now?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
I didn't know if you were going to do it now or later. Go right ahead.
Can you go back to that return on investment slide? Yeah, one of the problems I have every time I'm looking at one of your reports is we get these conclusions and I don't see the stuff that goes behind them. So I'm having a hard time understanding this. So the contributions are $6.5 million, and the hotel revenue is $22 million. And so you're saying there's a 353% return on investment, but wasn't there already revenue coming in before that was supported by the 18% of the TOT tax? So how do you get a 353% return on investment on $6.5 million for hotel revenue, which was already being supported previously to some level? I don't know what.
It was a much, much, much more modest level, and that was part of the challenge, is that we only had a couple of salespeople who were focused on this. We were able to double our sales force and expand our sales reach, offer more sales missions, and be able to rapidly increase our sales effort, as the hotels can share with you. This return on investment, again, the TBID is totally focused on group sales. And granted, in order to get to group sales, you have to have advertising, promotion, and all those brand builders that help, and that is supported by the 18%. But in terms of hardcore sales contracting, that's what we're talking about here, so that we could offer some sort of comparison in terms of what the TBID is actually doing versus what the 18% is doing.
Yeah, I think you're missing my point. My point, it kind of goes back to, I think, some of the comments that were made on the annual report, is that you give us the numbers that are conclusions, but we have no way of following your logic through as to how you reach these conclusions and, the process that you go through to come up with this, with the, the return on investment, all the math that goes into it and everything. It's just, we just get these summations, and so it's hard for me to understand anyway, because I usually like to look through these things and understand how the numbers all work.
Well, it is a very straightforward process, Councilman Selich. What happens is whenever we book a group, we then put together a booking form that says, we book the group, visit Newport Beach, book the group, it's X number of room nights, and the estimated revenue is blank. Those numbers are filled in by the hotel, and that form is then signed by the hotel and given to us.
Is that hotel revenue number then the group sales, or is that overall?
Sales.
Group sales only.
Group sales
right.
only.
Oh, okay, well, see.
Yes.
It doesn't say that.
I guess I was assuming that you understood this is all group sales effort. None of this is leisure
For business,
traffic.
I don't understand a lot of it.
I'm sorry.
That's why I'm asking the questions. Looking at the chart that's on page 4 of the staff report, and I'm asking you because I've asked the staff and they really don't know the answer to some of these questions, but those are the there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 or 6 other cities listed on there who are basically our major competitors. On these T-bids in here, in those cities, does it work like here where only certain hotels participate, or is this all the hotels in the city?
In those cases, from my understanding, it is all of the hotels in the respective cities. Now, they may be, in some cases, large hotels contribute at a different rate than smaller hotels, but we don't have any small hotels in our T-bid. That may be the only differentiation. And am I correct on that, John? John Lambeth is our...
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Lambeth with Civitas. Of the 82 districts there are right now around the state, they vary in terms of the hotels that they include. Some include all the hotels in their jurisdictions. Others have limiting factors. Some do it by a room night threshold. Some do it by geography. So not all T-bids include all the hotels.
Okay, thank you.
Different rates for large and small hotels.
That's correct. Some have zones, particularly where they're using the dollars to market a convention center. They will set up zones where those hotels that are closer to the convention center pay a higher rate.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Debbie.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Snavely, General Manager of the Newport Beach Marriott Hotel and Spa and Chairperson for Newport Beach and Company. I'm here today to ask for your endorsement of our industry's request to assess ourselves 3% for 10 years and renew our Tourism Business Improvement District. I'm also joined today by several general managers, as Gary mentioned before. As you know, this is a voluntary assessment program that we are formally requesting ourselves, which will be used to help further the growth of the meetings and conference industry here in Newport Beach. Gary did speak of the example of the BCS, and quite honestly, the T-bid gave us the resources and the personnel to compete head-on with Los Angeles, obviously a city that very much wanted the business. And as a result, the city will enjoy millions in economic impact that will also fill restaurants, stores, and local attractions. I know I speak for all of my hotel colleagues when I say that the T-bid is absolutely critical to our success. The T-bid not only brings us business that we would have hard time closing on our own, like the BCS, but the T-bid also brings us higher quality business, such as medical and technology groups that pay a higher rate and spend more money in our community. The request for the increase of 1% on the T-bid came from the hotels. This program works, and we need more of it. We also believe that a 10-year agreement will allow us to focus on accomplishing our mission and better strategic planning for longer-term business. If we as a hotel community feel at any time we are not receiving an ROI with the T-bid, I will assure you we will take matters into our own hands and disband it. I know one of the concerns expressed is the percentage of overall room tax the city collects and whether it will deter business from coming here. I can assure you that we are not aware of any instances where guests had questions about the existing 2% T-bid, and even at 13%, combining the T-bid and the TOT, we are not concerned about it deterring our customers, with many communities we compete against from 14 to 17%. We believe we are not pushing the limits with this assessment. If we did, we would certainly not be with you here today. You have always been a wonderful and supportive council when it comes to our hospitality industry, and hopefully we have repaid your support in terms of record transient occupancy taxes. Thank you for your support today and in approving our self-assessment to 3% for 10 years and allowing our T-bid to grow and contribute to the city's economic vitality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Daniel Cooperschmidt. I'm the General Manager of the Hyatt Regency Newport Beach. Thank you for taking the time this evening to listen to us. I'm here to strongly urge for your support of the renewal of the T-bid at 3% and for 10 years. As many of you know, we've just completed a $15 million renovation of the hotel, and as always, when you put that kind of money in, you look for an ROI, and that's where we turn to the T-bid. We think that the Visit Newport Beach can really help us through the T-bid in finding new group business and the right group business at high average rates. Right now, the competition across Southern California is really fierce, and it's important that we're out in front of the other cities tackling this new business and finding it to bring to our market. Like Gary said earlier, while Newport Beach is an incredible city, the business isn't just coming through the door. There's many other cities competing against us at the same time. This voluntary assessment really will help us to find new business and bring it to the market. I've never worked in a city where the community of hospitality gets together and really rallies to find business and work together, but it's crucial that we sell the city first and then later on allow the hotels to figure out which hotel it ends up at and properly compete against it. So again, in closing, I urge your support for a 10-year term at 3%. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Andy Theodore, Vice President and General Manager of the Newport Dunes Waterfront Resort. I also want to urge you to support our T-bid at 3% for 10 years. You may be thinking, what am I doing here? I don't have rooms. So why am I supporting the T-bid? Well, you're right. Other than the cottages that I don't have rooms for overnight guests, but I do work with meeting groups to develop off-site events. In fact, these groups are a significant source of business for the dunes. So when the Marriott or the Hyatt or the Fairmont, for example, books a large group, they often want to do a special event or a lunch or a dinner at my property. When clients want to consider an off-site venue for their event, I want to be the first in line to gain their business. A great example is the BCS, the upcoming Bowl Championship Series, that I know all of you read about and heard about. We will be hosting this event as it relates to the beef bowls. This is an event where the two teams get together, as far as and then also other events with the families. And this is a significant amount of dollars for the dunes. So while we're not generating large room taxes for the groups coming into town, we do generate significant taxes on food, beverage operations when we host these events. I joined the T-bid 2 years ago after it was underway. The T-bid allowed me to meet with key meeting planners and other influencers who can bring business to the dunes, something I couldn't do by myself. We have hosted client events at our property and developed even closer relationships with my hotel colleagues. The T-bid, in my opinion, is the best thing that the city has going. The T-bid doesn't cost the city a dime, and it boosts the city's TOT and retail tax base. Renewing this T-bid should be the easiest thing the council does all year. It is an upside with absolutely no downside. You have the opportunity to expand your tax base with no additional finance investment from the city. What is easier than that? Finally, I also want to assure the Council that even with a combined TOT and TBID rate of 13%, the industry believes we are still very competitive from a room and assessment perspective. Even if the city at some point in the future decided it wanted to add a 1% to the TOT, which would require voter approval, we do not feel that at 14% we would competitively be disadvantaged. Thank you for your support of our TBID and your long-standing support for our industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Any additional questions for Gary?
Yes. Two. One is, I think there's confusion about how all your parts fit together. You've got Visit Newport, you've got Newport Beach and Company, and you've got the TBIDs. Could you give a little bit about, you've got a board and who runs what and where it's separate and how incestuous you actually are?
Right. As you know, Visit Newport Beach was created more than 20 years ago as the tourism marketing entity, and it was funded through the TOT, which it still is. When the TBID was created, it retained that secondary funding mechanism, but because it is made up of assessed businesses, there is a separate TBID board. It is governed by the Brown Act. Those meetings are public. People are invited to attend if they so desire to do those, to attend. So that whole TBID is governed separately and apart from the 18%. Additionally, as you know, we've been in discussions with the city now over the last year about ways that we can help contribute and help the city coordinate and better undertake some of the marketing initiatives by different community groups, specifically the business improvement districts, such as Balboa Village, Corona Del Mar, the Restaurant Association. We're also still talking about Newport Beach TV. We're also talking about trying to enhance the boat parade, and we have a contract that we're working on, hopefully with the Chamber, to kind of pursue that. But in order to effectively do that, our Visit Newport Beach board said, listen, rather than watering down Visit Newport Beach, what we need to do is come up with an umbrella that kind of covers all of that. And that's where Newport Beach and Company comes into play. So Visit Newport Beach's governance has not changed. There's still a monthly Visit Newport Beach board. The governance, the bylaws, nothing has changed, but it is now under a kind of this umbrella and a more coordinated approach. The folks that work in Newport Beach and Company are really myself and our marketing team, because the marketing team's job is to create the marketing programs for all of these entities and to create synergies. The TBID staff, which is still under Visit Newport Beach, nothing has changed there either. They still are there. So really the only difference is that we have an umbrella organization that's designed to be of service to the city in providing additional marketing services. But Visit Newport Beach, its mission, its governance remains the same, and the board for Newport Beach and Company is the same as Visit Newport Beach, so that there aren't competing agendas. Hopefully that's made it clear.
Yes, all right. And then the second question, you're also asking that the it's mentally trying to keep them all separate as far as all the letters, but the TOT as opposed to the TBID, that the Visit Newport Beach agreement be extended for 10 years. Can you explain again why that would be valuable to the city to do so?
Well, and this really has to do with the more responsibilities we're taking on in terms of helping the city with all these other initiatives. While these other organizations, like the BIDs, are making contributions to Newport Beach and Company, they're very modest contributions of $10,000. The real infrastructure of this marketing is really the infrastructure provided by Visit Newport Beach, which allows us to not only do our job, but also be able to offer the talent and resources to these other organizations as well. So while they are contributing to it, we still need to have Visit Newport Beach as strong as possible. And if we're taking on these responsibilities, we want to make sure that we can think a little bit more long-term in terms of what we have to do. And again, as I mentioned there, some of these initiatives that we're undertaking, particularly overseas in China, and with some of these bids, they're not issues that we can get completed and done in 2 or 3 years. We'd like to be able to marry up both the TOT and the TBID, because I think there's a feeling from the hospitality industry is they're willing to pony up and make a contribution. They want to make sure that the city, which has always been a great partner, always been a wonderful partner, is a partner with them, and they're standing together at the same length of time as well, from a financial standpoint.
Mr. Selich.
Yeah, looking at if you look at the assessments in the TOT tax, the range of those 5 cities or 6 cities goes from 10 to 17%, Anaheim being at the top. Where do you see the possibility in the future for the city to go, if the city chose to do so, on increasing TOT to where we still stay competitive? I mean, I'm guessing we can't go to 17% for, I mean, I don't even know how Anaheim does it, quite frankly, but how far can the city go in that range, do you think, and still stay competitive in the marketplace?
Well, as you know, the requirements to actually boost TOT are much different than the TBID, because it does require a vote of the people. But we've always, the hospitality. Pardon?
I'm just talking economically.
Economically, if the city wanted to go to 14%, the industry would support the city in that initiative. I think that the real threshold is when we get somewhere around 16%. Again, most meeting planners don't make decisions based on TOT unless it is so far out the norm where it becomes a deterrent. I think the idea that you pay tourism business improvement districts and TOT is kind of an accepted practice now. So again, we don't lose a whole lot, but if the city decided that it did want to go to 14%, I think we would still be in the ballpark.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Gardner?
Not for Gary. Does anybody else have any questions for Gary? Okay, I have a question for staff. I'd like staff to expand upon that, because I know that there were concerns expressed in the staff report on page 5 in the second complete paragraph of why this could be a concern. Maybe not major, but a concern.
I noted a couple of the concerns, Councilmember Gardner, and one of them is the one that you're speaking of, and Gary and Mr. Selich, and that is that indeed if the city council, maybe not your city council, but a future one, wanted to or needed to increase the TOT to reflect a pressing city need, that having the TBID there at 13% kind of occupies that field. And it would be really hard and probably untenable to go back to the TBID and say, why don't you back off of that 1% so that the city could use it for general fund purposes. So that's what I was noting. I do note it as a concern. You know, the city's in good financial shape here, but it's my job to kind of look further ahead and just allow you to know and recognize that's a concern.
And then on one of the slides from your presentation, the years. So there was something. How long when would under this proposal, the bid would be extended until 24? Was that right?
Both 2024.
Both would be 2024.
Right.
And I understand very well the desire to be able to do long-term planning, but I am concerned that in something like this, we are in some ways tying the hands of future councils to a point where none of us, the new people coming in a year from now, would have no say in it. So that is something that I have to consider, and I will express, just so there are no surprises, I have hesitations about making a decision this evening. I know that they would like to do it, but there's a lot to be thinking about, so I will be pulling this off the agenda for further discussion this evening.
All right, let me ask, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this matter? Public comment, we'll get back.
Mayor Curry and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. Having followed the activities of Visit Newport Beach and the TBID for several years, I have several things to say about this. First, I think staff is wise to recommend not extending the TBID contract for more than 5 years at a time, because, as you heard, future councils may wish to revisit this, to consider other arrangements or other vendors for this service. I also think they're wise to recommend not adding 1% to hotel bills to fund increased TBID activity, because, as you heard, future councils may wish to add a similar charge to defray the costs of providing city activities to support the visitors. Second, those of you who stopped by these chambers 2 weeks ago when the California Coastal Commission was meeting here may have seen prominently displayed in the lobby of this chamber this new Coastal Access Guide to Newport Beach. It describes some of the low-cost amenities we have available to our visitors, and since we are a coastal city, one might think that this is the kind of visitor information that a visitor bureau would be producing. But this guide is not produced by Visit Newport Beach, and it's not what Visit Newport Beach, and most especially it's not what the TBID is about. The TBID is 100% about selling rooms in the member hotels to conference clients, and as we've heard now, selling the dunes as a venue. Since Visit Newport Beach is administering that program on behalf of the city, it is no different than having a public employee in the City Hall actively selling these rooms. I think it might bother you if we had a public employee spending their workday at public expense soliciting customers for Newport Beach auto dealers or doctors or dentists, and I'm not sure why this activity doesn't bother you. Possibly it's because you know so little about the day-to-day operation of Visit Newport Beach and the TBID. To correct that, I would like to suggest you consider appointing a council member as a full voting member on the governing boards overseeing Visit Newport Beach and the TBID. Looking at the roster of council appointments, we have council representatives on the Sanitation District, on the Vector Control Board, on the Transportation Corridor Agency, and a host of other tax spending organizations, often reporting back to you monthly. I think Visit Newport Beach deserves the same level of council involvement. And then finally, I would just observe it's been many months since the TBID has held one of these vaunted public meetings. It's so long ago I can't remember. I do not remember the board ever considering or endorsing this offer of paying $150,000 per year back to the city. They could have. I can't remember it. It's been so long ago. Thank you.
Mr. Hill.
Mr. Mayor.
Wait, are there any other public comments? All right, then I'm going to close public comment on this matter.
Mr. Mayor, I have to just say one thing, that the TCA does not spend a penny of taxpayers' money. It's all paid for by the users of the road. I thought we cleared that up earlier today. This is very simple to me. There's an adage in business, and there's some businesses that just the more marketing you do, the more sales you make. And the TOT is a significant number in our general fund. We do this because we make money off of it, and it's not against our community, but against visitors that come into our community, that we can use those funds to create the community, to keep it clean, all of those things that visitors cause that are good and that are bad. This is, there's another adage that a dollar doesn't flow until the sale is made. So we do this to increase the TOT. We do this to create the TOT. And so the goal is to hit the soft spot where we balance that we get some revenue and we don't charge too much so that we slow the overall volume down. I think it's been established that we're well within that revenue picture. If we wanted to add a couple of percentage because we needed more money to keep the beach clean or something of that sort, we have the flexibility of doing that. We have to have the vote of the people to do that. But we're well within that soft spot of being competitive. This group would not risk being competitive, taking themselves out of that picture. The goal is to make the pie bigger. The task is to fill our hotels. The beautiful thing about this is that our hotels are designed and conditioned on the infrastructure of them being occupied, not of them being empty. And so we have the infrastructure in place. It's one of the kindest type of elements that we have to raise funds that doesn't tax our environment more than we're prepared for within the process of how they were built and why they were built. So to me, I think that as far as increasing 1%, which is their funds, if they didn't do this, they would have that money in their pocket. They're willing to put 1% of their hotel room sales into a fund to provide additional marketing for which it generates additional TOT for which we get our share and distribute back to them their share as well. Planning to date is on a longer horizon than it's been in the past. And I could argue that 10 years is not very long at all. And that maybe we ought to consider 15 or 20. But the purpose, we're at a study session right now, and you've asked for direction. And so my direction is that 10 years is logical, that increasing the TBID by 1% to 3% is logical and still well within competition. Adding the additional hotel it's about time, and so I would be in full support of acting on this today. I'm also in support of going through the gymnastics of ending the existing TOT relationship so that it could be renewed and put on the same calendar basis as the TBID. I think that makes all kinds of sense in administrative planning on both our end and on their end. That would be my direction.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Henn.
Yeah, a couple quick questions. The action item tonight is really to start a process, is it not? Tell us how the process works. If we were to act on the item tonight, then what happens?
Tara, to take that.
The action item this evening is to modify the term of the TBID to shorten it to end in January. Therefore, it can be renewed as of February 1st. They would be able to start collecting the additional assessments, and the Island Hotel, if everything goes smoothly over the next couple of months, would become a member as of February 1. So it basically moves up the timeline about 2 months.
So what are the next steps then?
We'd also come back, if council decides to move forward, we would come back at your next meeting to begin the renewal process. That's also a 3-step process. So we would finish this up in January.
So there will be 2 or 3 more publicly agendized items for public input and council consideration to weigh the various aspects of this.
That's true.
They do need direction as far as whether or not the council overall support the percentage increase so they can circulate the petitions to take the next step.
So in follow-up to that then, the one thing that we should remember as it relates to, there is a natural reticence to make a 10-year decision here, and there was conversation about the possibility of also making, in effect, a 10-year decision with Visit Newport Beach. The Visit Newport Beach piece, which is by far the generator of the largest amount of revenue in this picture here, that contract is cancelable on a 1-year notice, is it not? So although that contract might be renewed for a 10-year period to match the TBID, there's a 1-year string on it. And so we're really not handcuffing future council flexibility as it relates to by far the most material piece of this whole picture. So I just want to make sure people understand that. I, too, am in favor of moving forward with this, although I will admit that it's not as straightforward a decision as sometimes we're asked to make here at Council in terms of the benefit to the public of what's being requested here. It's hard to fathom that. It's easy to see how the hotels might benefit by selling more rooms. Of course, the city will benefit by getting more TOT. We shouldn't lose sight of that. This suggestion by Gary Sherwin and the hotels that they would be willing to consider a $150,000 contribution towards the city's arts and culture, I think does provide, in fact, a very tangible public benefit associated with this that makes it much easier for me to conclude that we should move forward with these proposals. And I'd seek some guidance, perhaps consensus guidance from the rest of council about the possibility of including that with the considerations that will be coming back here. And as I heard it, the hotels are proposing that they would, I guess by contract, donate up to $150,000 a year for arts and culture. I would suggest that that really be dedicated to arts and cultural programming. And I would like to consider, and this is an item that can be considered in the budgetary process, but I would like to consider the city making a general fund match. I would further, though, modify that in that we don't have an arts and cultural master plan right now. We've approved the hiring of a consultant to get that done. I think we had a generally one-year time frame in mind when we did that. I hope that'll still get done perhaps now in less than a year, but it'll involve a lot of public output, outreach and consideration about what that plan should be. I think it's really important that that plan be in place before we ask the hotels to contribute toward the support of it, and even for the city to match. We want to make sure we've got a plan in place before we start figuring out how to spend the money and on what projects. But it's important that this piece, in my view, be aimed at arts and cultural programming, because we already have a funding piece that aims at art acquisition and facilities support. And to me now, we've got three legs of the stool. We've got an overall arts and cultural master plan that gives us the roadmap for how we want to make decisions, and we can include in that a component for cultural tourism programming. I like that idea, actually. We would only actually spend against either the hotel contribution or the city match as it relates to specific projects that come forward that are consistent with the arts and cultural master plan. So it's not like we're sort of force-feeding spending on arts and culture here. We're only going to spend the money that's to be spent on projects and programs that we think are valuable to the city. Overall, I think this idea should be viewed, this arts and cultural thing, as an investment, actually. And I hope the hotels, I get a sense of that. I hope the hotels see that it's an investment in the city by providing a fulsome mechanism to improve the arts and cultural programming and facilities in our city. We enrich the city of Newport Beach. We enrich the marketing and the value proposition, if you will, for the marketing of Newport Beach, which in turn sells more hotel rooms, which in turn generates more TOT, which in turn generates more investment in arts and cultural programming. I see it as a virtuous cycle that really gets us on the map in a meaningful way for our arts and cultural needs here in Newport Beach, which I think generally have been neglected in the past. And so, anyway, I'm going to support that, and inclusive with my support is this idea that's been volunteered for arts and cultural programming contribution.
Let me make a couple of comments, because I don't think people at home and people in the community really understand how much of what we have as a city is paid for by people who don't live here. Our hotels, through the TOT tax, generate, I'm doing this by memory, but approximately $15 million in annual TOT revenues. People say, how can you afford to pay for this civic center? That's nearly twice the cost of the debt service on the entire civic center. Expressed another way, that's enough to pay for the entire budget for our Parks and Recreation and Senior Services Department and our Library Department combined. That's how important visitors are to the budget and to the services that residents of the city of Newport Beach enjoy. It's absolutely critical to the success of our city that we continue to have a thriving, vibrant, and growing visitor-serving industry in our city, because it's what pays for the high quality of life amenities that all of us enjoy, which is why this is a good idea, which is why the extension is a good idea, which is why encouraging and providing the resources for our hotel industry to use those resources to grow that revenue, as they've done through the recession, through the hundreds of millions of dollars of investments that have been made in our hotels, to upgrade them during this time so that they can get higher room rates, so they can attract more meetings, so that they can do better business, has been so essential to our success. As we come out of the recession with all-time record TOT revenues, with the highest growth in property taxes of any city in Orange County, and with our sales taxes now rebounding almost to pre-recession levels. That's why this is important. It's critical to our economic sustainability. It's part of our economic financial sustainability plan, and I will be supporting this recommendation. I think the endorsement or the investment that will come to arts is a good thing. I think that's going to continue to expand and encourage people to visit our community and spend money. Now, we hear from the same sort of anti-business lobby, actually it's not a lobby, it's one guy, who also opposes the boat parade and also opposes the Girl Scout rebuild and opposes our investments in hotels and in tourism and in transportation and everything else. But those are the investments that make this city what it is and make us different from the other cities. And that's why it's critically important that we take, as we've done in the past, this foresightful thought to continue to make these expenditures and investments.
Mayor Curry?
Councilmember Gardner.
Just, that was what I wanted. I didn't know we were going to do it now. I really wanted a fuller discussion, and it seemed like we were not having it. As I say, I certainly understand it. I could think more about it and probably come to the same conclusion, but I certainly, at this point, I won't be pulling it this evening. So you guys can go home if you want.
Thank you. Mr. Selledge.
Yeah, well, I agree with what Councilman Hill said. You have to spend the money to do the marketing to fill the rooms. Here's where I'm bothered by this proposal, and I've been bothered by it since I first saw the report here a few days ago. And it is, why are we using the TBID as the mechanism to do this? And I really didn't realize these TBIDs were as pervasive as they are, so I did a little bit of looking into it, and there's way more of them, as shown in the staff report, than I ever thought there was, and they go up to really long terms. I saw one that went up to 50 years. But here's what bothers me about it is, and it goes back to what the city manager said in his report about occupying the field of where we can go. We're at 12% right now with the assessment in the TBID. We heard Gary say that he thought that there was room to go to 14, so that's a 2% spread. We're going to give half of that away as part of the TBID aspect of it. And so I asked, well, why do we have to have a TBID? Why can't these 7 hotels just get together? There's no difference, tax consequences to or anything else, just put together their own organization and voluntarily assess themselves outside of the TBID this additional 1% to do their marketing. And the comment that I got back was, well, the large chains don't understand local marketing, and we don't have any long-term guarantee of having this revenue source come in. And then I looked at this idea, and that's why I asked the question about how many of these TBIDs are actually in the entire city that they're organized in, or just a certain number of the hotels. Because if you look at one of the major benefits of having a TBID is that you create a certainty of a revenue stream. Well, you need a TBID to do that because you have a vote and you bring all the hotels in, and then if you have a majority vote, then everybody has to participate, and you have that certainty of the revenue stream. So in that instance, you need a TBID. But in the instance where you've got a group of hotels that are voluntarily getting together, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why they can't just contractually agree amongst themselves to do that and leave that additional 1% in that potential field for future TOT in the event that we ever need it in the future. I'm not proposing that we do it or anything like that, but I think that, as the city manager said, looking into the future is something that we should be concerned about. So that's I'm kind of on the fence on this thing right now, and just got the report here a few days ago, but I'm not quite as sure as the rest of you are.
Mayor Curry.
Petros.
I certainly will not be as eloquent as my colleague, Mr. Henn, or you, but I will lend my support to this effort. With regards to the notion of the occupying the field, let's not forget that there's a multiplier effect to each dollar that is spent and the revenue that comes back. So that when 1% is allocated to marketing, and in particular when it's allocated to group sales, it's not targeted to the individual visitor and their family to come stay in Newport when they have a trip to Disneyland. It is a much larger group that is coming in with many more dollars and has a cascading effect on the economy here. So that it's not a question of occupying the field over 1%. It is where are we going to get the greatest revenue stream out of our hospitality group. So therefore, I believe that by virtue of encouraging group sales in this manner, we are going to see a higher revenue stream. I appreciate the caution that the staff has put before us because we have to take a moment, pause, and reflect on that. But all that did was give me more time to look at some of the returns, the historical activity of the TBID and the TOT, to arrive at the same conclusion you have, Mr. Mayor. The notion of the term I was having a little bit of difficulty with in terms of the public benefit. What are we, the city, getting out of it? But this offer of the $150,000 to our new initiative for arts and culture, I think goes a long way in my mind. You know that the Newport Beach Theater is right up on Cliff Drive, and as one of the cultural stars in our sky, I think that is an area that deserves a little more attention and could be a recipient of a cultural infusion of dollars over a long period of time. And while the 10-year horizon does provide certainty for the funding of this, it also selfishly provides the city, and me in particular, the notion of a stream of payments for those cultural events. So I see this as a win-win, and I'll be supporting it.
All right, thank you. I will just say, I guess it's finally in closing, when it comes to this whole idea of occupying the field, because we may want to raise the TOT tax for general fund purposes, while I'm not a big fan of these no new tax pledges, I don't support raising taxes in our city in the next 3 years that I'm going to be on the city council, either the TOT tax, the property tax, or the sales tax, any one. I think we can live within the revenues that we have. And we should disabuse ourselves of thinking that we might want to in the future. I think that's not thinking certainly that I support. So with
Mr.
that,
Mayor?
Mr. Henn.
Yeah, just one more comment. Mr. Councilmember Selich always has insightful comments to make on these kinds of things, and I appreciate the issue that he raised here. Why can't they just get together on their own and accomplish the same thing? And in thinking about that, I've concluded that the city should want to have a TBID for this reason. Most of these hotels, Island and Pelican Hill being an exception, but really maybe not so much of an exception. These hotels are governed by large corporate organizations, generally headquartered somewhere else. And I've worked for large corporate organizations, generally headquartered somewhere else. And those organizations sometimes make decisions that affect, their hinterland investment areas in ways that they don't really think about very carefully, and that could impact us here in Newport Beach in terms of the things that we would like to accomplish. And I actually, in thinking about the question you raised, I actually like the idea of having the TBID and like the idea of, this thing being not completely locked in, but more locked in than it would be in a strictly voluntary thing. And I think it helps. I think it's a good thing for us, actually, and it repositions this decision making a little more out of the corporate headquarters mode and a little more into the local mode, which I think is good for us. And so, just in response to the thoughts that you raised, Ed, I wanted to offer those thoughts.
Mr. Selich?
Yeah, well, just seeing where this is heading, the negotiator in me always comes out in the end.
Admit you're wrong.
Well, in regards to the 150,000, I'd just say this: the first offer isn't always the best offer, and I think that where this is headed, I think we ought to look at sweetening that pot a little bit.
All right, seeing no further comments on this matter, I think it's been talked to death. Thank you all for coming. Public comments.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to start public comment by asking Mark Harmon to come up. Mark is our General Services Director, MOD Director, Municipal Operations, and this is his last week. And I just wanted to say to the council and to Mark and to the community how much I will miss Mark. And it's been a really important part of the management team and just for the public at home. So Mark's the guy that makes sure the beaches get, Mark's staff through Mark, make sure the beaches get cleaned, trash gets picked up. Our streets are repaired when we need the smaller jobs, trees are trimmed. It's a big deal, and it's a big deal to the community. We wish Mark the best in retirement. And I wanted, if you had any thoughts you want to pass along to Mark to give that chance, but I just say I'll miss you a lot, Mark, and wish you the best.
Yeah, I would like to start with that because, we stand up here and we take a lot of credit for how many positions we've cut and how many dollars we've cut out of the budget and how efficient we are and how many awards we've won. And what the public doesn't understand is that that's not all allocated throughout the city equally. It's very specific to departments. And in my opinion, nobody has been a better manager of the budget, of his personnel and his assets in achieving the cost savings that we've achieved over the past 5 or 6 or 7 years, and in the efficiencies that we've achieved in terms of our personnel and the allocation of resources than Mark Harmon has in his department. It is really, when you look at the numbers and really understand where the savings come from, a very, very significant accomplishment. And Mark, I just want to thank you for all that you've done on behalf of the taxpayers in Newport Beach during your tenure here.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor? Mr. Selich. Yeah, I'd just like to thank you, Mark, for all the work you've done in the city. I think you've done a tremendous job. I know that I have certain areas in my district that are more needy than others, and the responsiveness you've shown to issues that come up. I can tell you that someone would call me up and say there's a crack in the street and someone twisted their ankle, and they'll call me up a couple hours later and say, I can't believe it's fixed already. I mean, the responsiveness and the quality of service that you've given has been tremendous, and I'm really going to miss you, and you're going to have some big shoes for someone else to fill, and be tough for him to do.
Well, I just know that you won't miss me in the trees. Mark said every time he saw me, I'd say, there's a dead tree over here, or somebody's calling me about a tree. I think you handled probably the most contentious area of all in the city, which is the trees between the view people and the tree people, and you always handled it so nicely that we tended to be able to resolve everything with a smile, and I really do appreciate that because people around here care passionately about their trees.
Mark, I guess the comment has been made about the restructuring of our budget and the impact that MOD had as a result of that. I think the thing that I find refreshing, remarkable, and thankful for is how you handled that with attention for care for the staff. We did go through a significant reduction, and while it was painful on all ends, it was as humane as could possibly be done, and I think you were a big orchestrator of much of that, and your working with the staff I think was very important to that process. So I think the community owes you a significant thanks for allowing us to make those structural changes that are not one-time savings, but are ongoing savings in efficiency and effectiveness while delivering the same or better level of service. So I think that is part of the legacy that you've left in Newport.
Mr. Henn.
Well, before you start tearing up, Mark, at all of this, I said most of what I wanted to say to you when I bought you lunch the other day, but let me just add this. I certainly endorse all these comments that have been made. You've been a very proactive manager. I think the city is very blessed to have a lot of very excellent managers that drive results for our city across a whole spectrum of things. Certainly, you were at the forefront of that capable group. And the thing that I've appreciated is that, I think a lot of the public doesn't realize that a great percentage of what's done in the departments you manage are actually done through outsourced solutions. And you've been able to do that. The art of, we've talked about art earlier, the art of what you've been able to do is that you've moved forward on a very regular drumbeat of outsourcing where it's been appropriate in your department, and yet preserved a very high level of responsiveness to the special extra needs that our citizens have along the way, such that they don't really even, we've seen several evidences of this where people don't realize what's outsourced and what's insourced because all the service is excellent. So congratulations on the artful way that you've gone about your job over the years. It's just great.
Mr. Petros. Mayor Curry, the new kid on the block here, Mark, you and I have had 1 year of this relationship, but I would just remind you of the fact that our engagement preceded this, and the qualities of a manager are clearly reflected in the staff. And as I've written to you as just one of the general public, the engagements that we've had, my family's had with the water staff, with other members of MOD down on Lido Island and in our home in the Heights, has been superlative, and that's a direct reflection on you. In this last year, though, I have seen you weather the storm of the trash issue, and you've done it with what I believe to be a great sense of humility and integrity, responsibility and honesty, something that I'd like to model. And I think that was really a testimony to you personally, but to the organization that you're within. So I want to thank you. I know you're a very competitive man, too, and I will just remind you, you may get out of the water before me, but I'll chase you down on that run. We'll see you out there.
Mark, would you like to say something?
Thank you. Wow. I can't thank you enough for those comments. And it's the successes I've had are directly attributable to the work of the team. It's not me, it's them, and so I give them tonight all that credit because they deserve it. I want to thank the City Council. You've been supportive. You've been behind me, but more important than that, almost all of you have called me at one point or another to offer advice and to work with me on issues. In a lot of cities, that doesn't happen. It's filtered through different levels. And for your help, for that advice, for those phone calls, for those emails, I offer my sincere appreciation. So thank you. I've had the privilege of working for two extremely good city managers, Homer and Dave, and it's great to see Homer here tonight. And not many people are lucky in the sense to end their career under the guidance of two people like that. So I know how fortunate I am. And to the teammates, the other directors, the other management group, all the way down to the team that I'm so proud to have spent the time with, my own crews. Just a sincere thanks for everything. The support is what makes a manager. You don't do it alone at all. So your comments mean the world to me, and I certainly accept those on behalf of the department. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Job well done. Okay, public comments.
Public comments are invited on study session and regular meeting agenda items, closed session items, and non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Any public comments?
Mayor Curry and members of the City Council, my name is Jim Mosier. From the menu of choices that the City Clerk just offered us, I would like to use this opportunity to speak on a non-agenda item that seems particularly timely. That is what seemed to me to be the rather fantastic and overblown claims made to you about the economic benefits of governmental involvement in business. Whether it is Visit Newport Beach telling us about the return we get by investing our transient occupancy tax in them rather than using it to pay for needed public improvements or services, or the Restaurant Association telling us we receive 10 or 100 or I don't know how many dollars back for every dollar we invest in them, or those telling us that the airport, much as we dislike the overflights, is actually the economic engine without which our local economy would sputter and collapse. What makes me want to speak about this is an article I understand appeared in the Orange County Business Journal last Thursday, saying that the service to Mexico, which has been added to the airport last summer, has been shown to have added 990 new full-time jobs and $131 million to the local economy. That is typical of what you hear, and for all the public knows, typical of what you accept, with perhaps the exception of Councilman Selich, as true. I have not seen the study, and I do not purport to be an economist, but I'm skeptical about this. I'm skeptical because we're talking about 4 flights per day bringing travelers here from Mexico. And for each plane that comes here, there is a plane taking people out of Orange County. In fact, a non-economist like me would guess that to a large extent the planes are taking people and dollars out of Orange County to be spent in Mexico and returning those people to John Wayne devoid of their spare change. In any event, as many people are leaving as are arriving. So the only new net economic effect I can imagine is that associated with the persons who are actually at the airport, working there, or necessary to get the travelers on and off the plane. I find it really hard to believe that the airport had to add 990 full-time new personnel to service 4 flights. So that's the kind of simple claim I encourage you to be skeptical about. Some of our residents may indeed enjoy the convenience of flying to Mexico from a local airport, but I don't think that governmental encouragement of this new activity has brought county residents a $131 million windfall. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I am impressed that you read the Orange County Business Journal. I would say that when I get off an airplane in various communities, I usually end up renting a car, staying in a hotel, eating in a restaurant, and going to some attractions. And everywhere I go, there's usually somebody working there. So that's how jobs are created when you bring in people to a community. Are there any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn to closed session. Mr. City Attorney, is there a closed session announcement?
Yes, there is. The City Council will meet in closed session, discuss items 2A through C on the regular meeting agenda, including meeting with labor negotiators Dave Kiff and Terry Cassidy regarding labor negotiations with all represented employees, and meeting with real property negotiators Dave Kiff and Dave Webb regarding the property owned by Southern California Edison adjacent to Marina Park, as well as meeting with real property negotiator Pat Thomas regarding the property owned by Lido Pacific LLC and Terracotta Realty Fund on Newport Boulevard near 32nd Street. And Councilmember Henn, are you going to announce, Councilmember Henn informed me earlier this evening that he was going to recuse himself from item 2A, which is the real property negotiations on Newport Boulevard near 32nd Street, based on a business relationship he has with in Lido Village Plaza.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. We are adjourned to closed session.